All right, hi guys. So we just talked about the fact that visual texture is different from regular texture. Regular texture would be something that you could feel with your hands. Visual texture is when we look at something like a photo of, say, a field of grass, and you know how grass feels, so you can imagine how that would feel. Or you see a photo or a drawing of an animal, and you know how that animal would feel because you know what fur feels like, right? So we can't actually touch it. It's nothing on the surface that's making that furry on your artwork, but we can give the illusion, or we can imply that there's texture there that your brain can connect. Oh, I bet I know how that feels. So for this week, we're going to be drawing portraits or pictures of animal faces, and we're going to be adding visual texture on them through lines. So you can see right here, it's a little bit light because I went in with pencil first until I got it right. And then I'm going to be using a black marker today. I think for my whole thing, I may use some color in the background, but I'm going to be mainly using a black marker. Now you could use a permanent marker like I am. If your grown-up says it's okay, you just want to be really careful about the surface that you're drawing on. Or you could use a black washable marker, a black crayon, colored pencils. You could make the whole thing colored if you want to. It doesn't have to be black and white. So just like always, there are a lot of options for your artwork this week. Then you're going to want to decide what kind of animal you want to draw or represent. You could draw that animal from memory, or you could find a photo online in a safe search engine that you could look at while you draw. You can even find some really great videos on YouTube of how to draw animal faces if you're interested. So today I chose to draw a koala. And you can see that I built the koala out of different shapes. I drew kind of like a rounded off triangle for his face. I drew 2 circles on either side of his head for ears, and then I went back over those circles and gave him kind of some spiky ears. There's kind of a little oval here for his nose, some ovals for his cheeks. I used circles for his eyes. There's a circle down here. And then I didn't want the background to be blank, so I included some things related to my animal in the background. So for today, I drew some bamboo stalks kind of coming up behind him because koalas love to eat bamboo. So now what I'm going to do, now that I've drawn it in pencil and I'm sure all my shapes are where I want them to be, now I'm going to go in with my marker or whatever material I'm using, and I'm going to trace around all of my lines in my drawing. So let's do that real quick. All right, so now that everything is outlined that I want outlined, now I'm going to start going into some of my different areas, and you can see if it's very close up that I left some pencil lines here. There's some sections in his ears. I may even add a couple of more pencil sections on his cheeks, because those are the directions that I want my lines to go, and these areas I want to be a different direction of line than my other ones, and you'll see what I mean in just a minute. So we're going to start on his forehead, and I'm just going to start by making little lines that follow along the shape of his forehead. And depending on how the lines go is how it's going to look like his fur is falling. So you can see that our lines are adding visual texture along our animal, and I'm changing the direction that these lines are going, if they're curving, if they're going straight up and down. I'm even varying kind of the length of these lines in certain places. And you can see it's starting to look a little bit like fur. So now for the rest of his face, I'm going to go into different areas and do the lines facing different directions. So you can see here, I'm kind of following around some of these shapes that I've already created with the way that my lines are curving. So around the round part of his eye, I'm overlapping some of these lines and I'm curving them along with his eye. I did the same around the edges of his face. I started to make those lines curve as if his fur was kind of following the shape of his face. All right, so now my koala is all full of these lines. And you can see that not only does the direction that I'm facing those lines give you the illusion of texture, or that visual texture on his body that makes you think this might be fur, I might know what that feels like, but also the way that I've spaced out the lines and how long or short they are change the way you think that that area of him might feel, right? So I did some really short little lines in these areas. That might be a little shorter and smoother. If you've seen like an animal with some really short hair, it's typically more fuzzy than fluffy and furry. And then on his body and his ears, I did the longest lines because those are the areas on him that are the fluffiest. His fur is kind of all spaced apart. And then I did something kind of in between for his face. So the length of the lines, how close together they are, and the direction that they're facing will give you that great visual texture that you're looking for in our animal portraits this week. So I'm just going to finish coloring in the background, and then I'll be back with you in just a second. All right, so now I am all done with my visual texture koala. I'm really proud of the way he turned out. I took my time, I filled my space really well, and I was thoughtful about where I was putting my lines. So we're so excited to see what type of animal you want to do this week, how you implement visual texture and make it look like that animal has some fur. Again, if you need to, ask your grown-ups permission and look up some reference photos online of how to draw your animal, and then what type of fur do they have and how are you going to mimic that. We're so excited to see what you create, and we hope you have a lot of fun with this project this week. Bye!